As you see this Netflix card behind me, the UFC is in a lot of trouble because Ronda Rousey and Netflix, boy, they have outdone themselves. They have put on an incredible MMA card. And Dana White, you used to hear Dana White trashing, absolutely trashing people who were trying to do this, right? And you really haven't heard a bleep out of him. Dana White used to defend his organization like crazy. So, no one can outdo the UFC. The UFC is the best at what we do. No one can put it on like the UFC. And now you see former UFC stars, absolute stars, coming together and putting on this incredible Netflix card, the Intuit Dome, Los Angeles. You guys are incredibly lucky because Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Serrano at the top of the bill. Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins. Oh my God. I mean, Felipe Lins, I'm sorry, you just signed your life away to Francis Ngannou. But man, that fight is going to be entertaining to watch. We all want to see France on the big stage, on the big show. Nate Diaz, he's back. He's back. The UFC. I mean, I know the UFC was talking to Nate Diaz. And I heard Dana White, he said something like, oh, Nate Diaz just got an offer he couldn't refuse, right? And Nate Diaz got $15 million from Netflix, something that the UFC would never be able to give Nate Diaz. Mike Perry, former UFC star, BKFC stud, right, on this Netflix card. And so you know this card is drawing a lot of attention. First of all, I mean, it's drawing attention from me, right? Robelis de Spain versus Junior Dos Santos, right? Muhammad Mokaev versus Aaron Myers, right? I mean, look at this. We can go through on the Netflix website as well what this fight card looks like. Ronda Rousey versus Gina. I don't know why I said Amanda Serrano. Jeez. I'm sorry, guys. I'm falling off. Ronda Rousey versus Gina Serrano, right? An incredible fight in women's MMA, right? We all love Ronda Rousey. Yeah, Ronda Rousey might be a little bit crazy. She might not be the best fighter, but boy, is she entertaining. She sells fights at the press conferences. She has called out the UFC on numerous occasions, talking about fighter pay, talking about the way that they're treated, talking about health insurance for the fighters. Ronda Rousey, this woman is on a rampage, and a rampage that I love. Ronda Rousey, keep doing your thing. Keep calling out the UFC and keep working with Netflix to put on absolute MMA bangers, right? I've been waiting for someone outside of the UFC to do something crazy in the MMA scene. Netflix, way to get yourself involved here. Way to get yourself involved. Right, Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins. I've talked about it before. Former UFC champion, former PFL champion. Francis Ngannou, yes, he did the PFL dirty. PFL Africa. What happened, Francis Ngannou? Francis Ngannou, when he joined the PFL, he was like, well, I just want to put on for other African fighters, give them the opportunity to build themselves into. And he did absolutely nothing. He wasn't even at PFL Africa events. He couldn't even show his face at the events. And so while I'm not the biggest fan of Francis Ngannou, the person, that's for sure, I love watching Francis Ngannou fight. No one can take that away from Francis. He throws bombs. He's a monster. He's a maniac. He was able to beat Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane is fighting for an interim heavyweight UFC belt, right? John Jones waited 3 years to avoid Francis Ngannou, so he didn't have to face him, right? We all wanted to see John Jones versus Francis. That was the fight we all expected when John Jones was going to make his heavyweight debut, right? But we get Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins. I'm sorry, Felipe Lins, again. But again, this is another former UFC heavyweight, right? And so this is what I'm talking about. Former UFC fighters banding together to build an absolutely stacked card. Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. You know we all want to watch that fight. Man, the Diaz bros, right? We love the Diaz bros. They're some of the most beloved fighters. And Mike Perry, you know one thing about Mike Perry. He's bound to be anytime, anywhere. He's ready to scrap, throw big haymakers. And you know you're not going to get a boring fight when Mike Perry's in there. You know you're not going to get a boring fight with Nate Diaz and Mike Perry. And so that's what Netflix has done. They've taken big names, given them big money, the big money they deserve. And now we get big names fighting big names with guaranteed entertaining fights. Man, it does not beat this. Junior Dos Santos versus Robelis de Spain, right? We've seen Robelis de Spain have incredible KOs in karate combat. We even saw it in the UFC, right? As long as Robelis Despain can stay on the feet, he is one of the nastiest heavyweights on the planet. An incredible, I think he might be a Taekwondo guy, but an incredible martial artist, an incredible striker. He's not a great mixed martial artist, that's for sure. Not great on the ground at all. If Junior Dos Santos can take him there, he'll be a fish out of water. But that is an incredible fight. Shadil Pernice versus Kenneth Cross. More big names, more guaranteed action, guaranteed haymakers, and Muhammad Mokaev versus Adriano Moraes. And then this fight card is just stacked out with other guys who maybe, aren't the biggest names, but will certainly open the fight card. And I mean, once this Mokaev fight starts, we got nothing but bangers up the card. Boy, am I excited for this UFC Netflix card. And I'm waiting for Dana White to start trashing on this card, right? Because we've seen in the past when Francis Ngannou is fighting at the PFL, right? When other fighters are going to other organizations and taking big money, going elsewhere, right? Dana usually has some fire. He's usually a little feisty. Gets a little annoyed, right? Stands up there at the press conference and trashes on him for a little bit. But we're not getting that from Dana. We're not getting that from Dana. And I wonder if potentially Dana just lost it. Has Dana White just lost it? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Has Dana White lost his care for the UFC? Has he lost his passion? And I will say, one thing that I did hear was Jorge Masvidal was also supposed to be on this Netflix card, but I hear Jorge Masvidal is coming back to the UFC. I heard Nate Diaz was in talks with the UFC, right? The UFC was trying to prevent Nate Diaz from being on this card. They could re-sign him, and Nate Diaz would fight in the UFC's organization. But they were unsuccessful at doing so, and Jorge Masvidal was the name that they were successful at, maintaining in the UFC. And so my question is, what is next for Jorge Masvidal in the UFC, right? Game bread. Is he going to be fighting Conor McGregor? I do hear McGregor is going to be fighting Max Holloway in the summer. And so I'm curious, right? What's for Conor McGregor? What's for Jorge Masvidal? And I am curious if the Nate Diaz will ever be coming back to the UFC. But nonetheless, Netflix, you have done an incredible job. This fight card is so nice. UFC, you guys are going to have to pick up your stuff. You guys are going to have to pick up your shit. Let's go. Give me some fire, Dana White. Shit on this card a little bit. But you can't because they're just absolute studs left and right on this card. Boy, am I excited for this one. If you enjoyed content just like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And let me know what you think of all of these fights in the comments section. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good one. Peace.